네, 안녕하세요.
Hello everyone. 2025 Seoul International Writers Festival welcomes you. Last night we had a heavy rain and I was a bit worried, but today it has cleared up, so I'm very happy indeed. I'll be moderating this one-on-one. I'm Seung-Won. I'm a literary critic. Some housekeeping announcements. We are providing Korean and English simultaneous interpretation. So for those of you who are wearing receivers, please understand that there's going to be a bit of a delay. And this is also being live streamed on LTI Korea's YouTube channel. You can connect to the channel of your language choice, and online participants can leave your questions in the chat window, and we'll deal with them during the Q&A. So that was a bit of a housekeeping announcement. At Seoul International Writers Festival this year, we have the theme parentheses meets the eye, and this one-on-one is titled Resilience Meets the Eye. And so we have invited two beloved writers, Kim Soom and Kim Juhea, who has traveled far from the US. And so before we engage the dialogue, I'd like to briefly introduce them, and they will say hello to the audience. So first, Kim Soom. She won the 1997 Writers Contest with her short story on slowness, and 1998 Writers Award for Time in the Middle Ages. She's the author of many short story collections like Liver and Gallbladder and Noodles, and novels such as One Left, L Sneakers, and Floating Land that dealt with tragic incidents in Korea's modern and contemporary history. Her very distinctive and rigorous thinking on her themes and her penetrating attention to character leave a very profound impression on many readers. And so her storytelling capacity has earned her numerous awards, including Daesan Contemporary Literature and Isang Literary Award. And her work has been published in translation in the US, the UK, France, China, Japan, and many more. And so we'd like to hear from Kim Soom. Hello, everyone. It's a very beautiful day, isn't it? And before I came to this one-on-one, I had a very pleasant chat. So I think I can meet with you and converse with you about literature and about our work in a very comfortable manner. Thank you for coming here.
감사합니다.
Thank you very much. Next, I would like to introduce the writer Juhea Kim. So Kim Soom and Juhea Kim. It's actually quite an honor for me to be introducing both of these writers. So Juhea Kim was born in Incheon, but she moved to the United States at a very young age. So she is a writer in the United States of Korean descent. She began her literary career in 2016 by publishing the short story Body Language in the British literary magazine. And we mostly know her from her novel Beasts of the Little Land, translated into Korean in 2022, which provided her with much acclaim. And she also garnered international recognition with this book. In 2022, she was shortlisted for the Dayton Literary Peace Prize, and in 2024, it won the Yasnaya Polyana Literary Award, Russia's most prestigious literary prize presented by the Leo Tolstoy Estate Museum. And I was so overjoyed by that news, and I emailed her right that night. More recently, her second novel, City of Nightbirds, was published in Korea and is also enjoying enthusiastic support from readers. Kim also wears a unique hat. She is the founder of Peaceful Dumpling, an online magazine that focuses on ecological literature and sustainability. She has been the editor-in-chief for that magazine for more than 10 years before, delegating that to another colleague. And she's a dedicated advocate for animal protection and environmental causes. She regularly donates her book proceeds to the Phoenix Fund, a nonprofit organization dedicated to protecting Siberian tigers and Amur leopards, and serves as an ambassador for the Korean Tiger and Leopard Conservation Fund. And the prize money for the Beasts of a Little Land were also all fully donated. It's a pleasure to meet you. I am Juhea Kim. So yes, the prize money for the Yasnaya Pollyanna Literary Award and also other prize money were all donated to the Korean Tiger and Leopard Conservation Fund. And I am trying to help protect the Korean tigers and leopards. And it's quite an honor to be here with Kim Soom and Nam Seung-Won.
This is a coincidence. We were all born in the year of the tiger. I guess so. Kim Joo-hen Nim, you should work to preserve the lives of me and Kim Soom since we were born in the year of the tiger. So we would like to begin our one-on-one discussion. And in selecting the theme of this one-on-one, we deliberated a lot. And so when you got wind of the meets the eye theme, what did you think of it? So it's parentheses, meets the eye. And I'm sure the audience will also relate. Literature is a direct reflection of what we see and what we experience, but it always contains much more than that. And so in order to talk about the essence of literature, we capture that in this theme. And this one-on-one is titled Resilience Meets the Eye. And to my thinking, I believe that it does reflect these two writers' literary world. I know it's difficult to generalize. It talks about history and the personal destiny and the hardship, and the protagonists are in constant struggle, and it shows the hero's resilience. And so I think this is very well properly worded. Resilience meets the eye. So what was your first impression? Kim Joo-hee first?
라는 것은
Meets the eye isn't about something that really doesn't meet the eye. It's actually telling us to focus on something that is easily visible. So social media, what we see on our smartphones, this is something that we should turn our eyes away from and focus on what is resilient and what is beneath that. And I would say that literature comes from this kind of observation. And this observation really begins when we focus on the things, the small things that we mostly overlook. I often am asked the question, how much research and work do you put in when you're writing? And I'm surprised to face that question every time. And I later realized that they were asking if they research as much as I did, then would they be able to write as I can? But actually, I would say that research is like the fifth or sixth most important step. The most important step would be observation and sympathy of what I see in my observations. I'm inspired very much when I take walks. On a rainy day in London, if I go out to my backyard, I can see so many snails, and I would observe those snails for a while. And on sunny days, there would be bees. And this kind of bee would only go to a certain flower, and the more plump bees would only focus on certain other flowers. So these little creatures, these tiny creatures, all have their own order. This is the order and the rules that they follow to sustain their lives. And all of these lives are depending on each other to come together to form the universe in a community. So we should focus on more than what meets the eye, the resilience that meets the eye. So the Chinese philosopher said that, I'm not quite sure what the quote was, what I think it was on the line of the human is a universe. Now, Kim Soom?
처음에는 보이는
Yes, I first focused on meets the eye. And then later, I paid more attention to resilience. In order to write novels, there are many people that I want to meet. And so there's this sympathy and compassion that could be, flowing inwardly, but I am meeting many more people that let and channel my compassion flow outward, and I enjoy those meetings. And resilience, there's this foreign migrant worker, Ali, from Sri Lanka. That's whom I met recently. It's been 13 years, and the migrant worker is living in a one-room studio, and his wife came with a baby that was born in June to stay for a very short time in Korea. And so, I met him on the street and I talked to him. And so while I was walking and while waiting for the bus, for them, there was this small shuttle bus that they went on to get home. And on the bus, I asked him as many questions as possible. I heard the answers from Ali, and they had gone, grocery shopping, and they had eggs. They had bought eggs, and they were getting back home, and I saw his shoulders, from the back, and resilience. When I got this question, I was reminded of his resilience. I'm a literary critic, and so I see the works that are manifest in words, and sometimes mechanically I tend to evaluate and assess other people's works. Kim Soom and Juhea Kim, you talked about the figures and the nature that surround you, and observation may not be the right word. It could be sympathy and compassion that you feel toward the humans and the nature around you. So it gets me thinking.
Maybe compassion, sympathy, or
observation, which is 관찰 in Korean, but
아니다. Well, yes, observation perhaps could be replaced with the word attention or observation. Now, I actually have prepared a list of questions for the writers, and I would also like to share that people who are joining us on YouTube, please upload on the chat window any questions you have of the writer so we can share them in the Q&A session. But I would like to begin with the list of questions that I brought. First is a common question for both writers. So at the risk of overgeneralizing, but because we have invited the two writers, of course I regard you as separate individual writers, but when I was trying to visualize this event, I was imagining both of you on the stage, and I thought that two of you have different attitudes towards the characters in your stories. For example, Juhea Kim, in your City of Nightbirds, it seemed like the characters are closely intertwined with yourself. And I also felt the same way about The Beasts of the Little Land. While in Kim Soom's writing, it's hard to generalize because you have so many books that have been published. However, it feels like you make a point of maintaining a certain distance from your characters. And I was wondering, why is this difference? I thought that you were allowing some space for the reader to insert themselves in. And the migrant worker that you were talking about just now, I thought that Kim Soom, you were observing this person and you were inviting the reader to also join that space and observe that character as well. And I'd like to know how you feel about your characters, especially the protagonist, while you're writing. Juhea first. Well, I believe that this question is testament to your very sharp eye as a literary critic and reader. And as a writer,
The character. 이게 굉장히 짧은 작가 중에 하나입니다. 이거는 그리고 제 성격에서 나오는
겁니다. So it's very a short distance from myself and my characters. The emotional distance is very short, and it comes from my own nature. I really think about other people a lot. So when I'm walking down the street, if a person misses an elevator, then I feel so put down. And if I see a restaurant is empty and isn't getting any patrons, then I feel so sorry for them. And I feel of all of those emotions every second of my life. And I really relate very much to my characters in my books. So I feel myself standing behind my characters and experiencing their own lives. And that's what I put into my writing. But Kim Soom, your attitude towards your characters is also something very persuasive as well. And I believe that the writing style of each writer is something that springs from oneself. It's not something that you can change. It's not a choice.
Yes, what about you, Kim Soom? Well, having heard Kim Juhea-nim's reply, I think it's the same at the end of the day. I think it's very similar because, as for me, the older I get, the act of writing novels I like even more and more. Oh, wow, now I think I got the knack for writing novels. I think I'm truly writing a novel. That's the impression that I get. The characters that I create in my stories, it looks like I distance myself, but I think I have to become that character. But this objective distancing that you are talking about, it seems that way. Why is that? I think it's because I don't like judging other people's lives. I don't like to be judgmental. I just want to be that person, and I live that person's life in that novel. I become that person, and I just relay the words coming out of that person's life into the novel. So making judgments about the character, that being emotional or social, and maybe the victims of history. My characters are like that, but I never make judgments. But you cannot avoid making judgments about those people because you go back in time and relive their lives. And I try to speak on behalf of them, the words that have not been spoken by them. So it may look like that, but at the end of the day, I think I have a similar stance to Kim Juhea-nim's. I guess this was a very unintelligent question coming from a critic. So yes, you do have the same passion for your characters, but because I was a trained critic, I thought you relied on different conventions. So I apologize for asking such an unintelligent question. And now that was a common question for the two of you, and I would like to now ask separate questions for you each.
Juhea Kim, I think you get this question quite a lot because particularly your first novel, dealt with Korean history, particularly the colonial period, and it has a very impactful title, Beasts of a Little Land, and the cover design also went very well with the story. Someone who was born and raised and living in Korea, looking at you as a writer who is an immigrant based for a while in the US. And you can see that you're very fluent in Korean. You also translate Korean literature into English. Choi In-hoon's books are very difficult to read, but you are translating them into English. And so you are really have a very strong grip on your sense of the Korean language. And I was wondering about this. In the Caucasian culture or society, I would say that you still have joined the mainstream of that society. But I thought it was really interesting. And I thought it was also very curious that you were writing about Korean history. So we have the writers of Korean descent based in the US, including Chang Re-ri, Susan Choi, Angie Kim, Alexander Chi, Tae Keller, Paul Yoon, and Snow Hunters. It was such a beautiful piece of work. And last year's Lee Woo won the Pulitzer Prize. So they are creating widely diverse worlds of writing. But they really don't focus on Korean history. But perhaps because Min Jin Lee's Pachinko was very successful, some wrongly assume that there's a wealth of fiction on Korean history in American publishing from writers of Korean descent based in the US. And I believe that this is a misunderstanding. Well, K-pop is very popular around the world, but the modern history of Korea is not afforded much attention from around the world. And Juhea, you are dedicating your career and you made the choice to write about Korean modern history, which isn't afforded much attention from around the world. In your first novel, I know you get this question quite a lot. Yes, I do get this question quite a lot, but to be very clear about this, the independence movement from Korea, Kang Yong-hul, in 1931, published the book, The Grassroots, and there was the first time since then that a book was focused on the liberation movement of Korea. So mine was the first book in decades. So when I was writing this in 2016 and 2017, Korean history fiction wasn't common in American publishing. I knew it is a big bet, and I remember having a meal with my agent Jody Han. We were saying, and I was asking her whether this would really resonate in the American publishing market. But of course I didn't make this choice because I wanted to talk about I didn't want to dispel the secrets of Korean literature. Jan Makar, yesterday at the opening ceremony, said something that resonated with me very much. When that writer is faced with a question on why are you writing about history, that writer answered that I'm not just trying to testify about history, I'm trying to testify of human emotion. And I think the same way. I'm most interested in human beings. I'm inspired in one moment.
를 제대로 담을 수 있는 주제가 바로 이야기다라는
The truth about the human experience can only be relayed in such an inspired moment. And I think it's a mystical experience.
이 한국 역사
So I'm not about researching. It's not about a logical choice to research and share Korean history, but the mystery of creativity suddenly comes from within and without at the same time. Yes. So when you were writing Beasts of a Little Land, I know the answer to this question, but I heard that you were inspired when you were jogging. Well, actually, I keep repeating myself. My sound like I'm repeating like a robot, but it was quite a miraculous experience for myself, and it was a miracle. Because at that time, I was struggling in my life. I was really hungry. When I say I'm hungry, it's not a figure of speech. I was really physically hungry and starving. And in that situation, I was jogging through hills, snowy hills. And I could see an image, a vision of a giant tiger and a lost hunter. And the whole plot of the story came up to me like a constellation. I ran home and started writing the foreword. And that experience itself was something like out of a fiction. And this mystery of creation, this miraculous inspiration also came to me when I started with City of Nightbirds. So I knew what I was going to write overnight for City of Nightbirds as well. And in November, my next book is coming out in the US and Korea as well. And the short stories in that collection have mostly been inspired in one moment. So I wrote them in one breath. You know, writers have different means of writing. So some writers would try to solve questions, but some writers are inspired in one moment. And I would say that I'm of the latter sort. So participants here, this is my favorite part of the discussion with Juhea Kim. So I think she summarized a little, and please look up her interviews to hear about her inspiration for her two novels. It's such a fascinating story.
김숨 작가.
And now I have a question for Kim Soom. I think it's been 10 years now in KBS. There was a program that I had a chance to meet Kim Soom. But, she kind of, turned me down. So you were my, one author that I wanted to meet. So I was looking forward to it, but that did not happen. So, I was, thinking, oh, I'm going to see her tomorrow. So I'm a critic and I have to ask this wonderful question. And so I want to ask this question. It's still a mystery. I wanted to write a piece on your writing for 10 years, but I have never gotten around to doing it. Kim Soom, I'm sure the audience will agree with me. Her sentences, her writing style is so beautiful. Her short stories also. So, I didn't want to get her autograph in all her books, so I just picked one that was Chul, iron, and I got her autograph. So Chul or one left, I think you can check this. I say this with caution. So there's this repeated use of certain phrases to drive home certain messages or scenes, the characters' inner feelings or themes to the readers, almost with an obsessive force. And so it seems like a person who is obsessive compulsive has written this, and I can kind of make an analogy to droplets of ink dropping on the traditional Korean paper, and the ink bleeds. And so I was having a drink with my friend, and I was telling my friend, oh, I love her writing. It seems like her sentences have a trailing shadow. And I use that expression a lot. Her sentences have shadows. So when I meet her, I wanted to ask this question. So this has been with me for 10 years. So I want to hear your take on your writing style. Yes, it's the first time that we meet. Yes, and we are born in the same year of the tiger, and we also have we have our dogs as pets, so we have so many commonalities. Juhea Kim is also writing as well as translating, so She has given a lot of thought about the language, about the accurate wording, and she's also, writing in both Korean and English. And I think she has given serious thoughts to the language itself from very young. But as for me, when I was young, I didn't have books to read at home, and I was a very bad student in the Korean subject, and I tell this a lot. So I have never been taught the skill of writing novels. So which sentence is the more accurate sentence? I never could sense that because I was not trained. So in that situation, I was not ready. I wasn't prepared, but then I became a novelist. So how did I come to write novels? I liked writing poetry, and the poetry got longer and longer, and that became a novel. I think I'm in a very impulsive state when I'm writing. Some story that I want to write, it just comes to me. I also like to take a walk and I get inspired. And then I'm drinking coffee in a cafe and I overhear somebody else's conversation, and that becomes a novel for me. So those things that come my way, I think I just wrote them down, and I think I kept myself busy writing. And as you asked me about my writing style, but I was not conscious of my style. I just wrote what I wanted to write. But I guess, the compulsion or the obsessive force, I guess at the time when I was writing that novel, I guess that was the state of mind that I was in. So I think I was, suffering from that state of compulsive, obsessive thinking and behavior. And I guess you, as a critic, sensed it in my writing style. So maybe I was caught red-handed. When my piece is complete, then I will come to you and have a talk over a drink.
술 많이 안
We were talking about drinking so much. Professor Nam asking me, why, if I don't drink? Yes, we should have a drink together afterwards. Now, let's move back to Juhea Kim. So this is a question about your recent novel, City of Nightbirds. It's selling very well, isn't it? So the first question was about where do you start writing? What is your starting point for writing? And my question is sort of a reverse of the first question. So reading the book, I'm a very fast reader, and it took me just about 2 days to read through the whole book of City of Nightbirds. And have you read A Gentleman in Moscow by Amor Towles? This book first reminded me of Gentleman in Moscow, and I'm a graphic novel and comics fanatic, and one of my favorite writers is Seung-Won. He has a graphic novel titled Paulina, of the same name character, and those two books were coming up to me in flashes when I was finished reading this book. One was because The Gentleman in Moscow was based in revolutionary Russia in Moscow. This is an American writer, but he wrote a very detailed story about Russia. And the second, the graphic novel, is about a ballerina named Paulina. And Paulina also went to Vaganova Academy, and she becomes a contemporary dancer later on. So to just give a brief summary, The City of Nightbirds I believe it's about depicting characters' lives intertwined with art. And then this question comes up. Why did it have to be ballet for you, and why did it have to be set in Russia? So I've actually studied ballet since the age of 9, and at the same time I began playing the cello. So classical music and ballet are the most important pillars of my inner self, and they are my passion throughout my life. Actually, I am more passionate about those two than I am about literature. So City of Nightbirds is about ballet, but it's also about art. As Professor Nam just said, for me, City of Nightbirds is about, it's a love story between an artist and her art. But when I was writing Beasts of a Little Land, and when it was published and I was promoting it, in the process of writing and creating and publishing, everything that I felt and learned was projected into City of Nightbirds in the form of ballet. And you asked, why did it had to be ballet? So art really has to have the dedication of your your physicality, your whole body, your soul, and your whole mind. And I believe that is true for myself. True art is nothing more, nothing less. It's the whole dedication of your whole self. And for a creator, an artist, something that demands you of everything, even more so than other art forms, is ballet. I would say that this is because, writers, some of them are quite nihilistic. And I don't believe that writing requires dedicating your entire self. Well, there would be different types of writers, but anyway, that's what I feel. But a ballet dancer can never be so nihilistic or sarcastic or cold. If you are feeling nihilism when you're on stage, then you really can't dance. You have to be there in your full soul and your whole body, and you have to dedicate and give everything to be able to perform art. And you asked why it had to be Russia. Among the many schools of ballet, I believe that Russian ballet is something that I can most closely relate to. In Russian, it's called dusha. Soul is called dusha. But about the problem of the soul, whether it's what other form of art it is, whether it's ballet or literature, the soul is most important. So I believe that among the many different schools of ballet, Russia is the one that most fits what I believe in. So to give an example, if we think about the Danish style of ballet, this is more of a peasant style. So there's a lot of jumps, but they're weak jumps. You don't really fly up into the air, and your eyes are downcast. You are to be humble, and you should never be arrogant. That is what is taught at the Royal Danish School of Ballet. But at Vaganova or Bolshoi, when you're jumping, you have to be really proud. You have to really be like this. They always aspire to a form of nobility. They always aspire to something that is a pinnacle, and it is more fitting for my passionate nature. So if I may ask, I'm involved in literature, and I'm interested in different genres of art. The only art form that I can't enjoy because I don't understand it would be ballet, because I've never danced myself in my life. So for a novice to ballet, someone who knows nothing about ballet, I would like to ask you another question. So if you can express everything with your body, but the absolute life, the power of life, when we're thinking about that, please don't spoil my book. The protagonist becomes a director. Actually, please don't spoil my book. Oh, actually, I was just confused with another book. Is ballet more beautiful because it doesn't really have longevity? I actually wasn't thinking about that, but this spoiler threw me off, but I really wanted to share this. When we were chatting earlier in the waiting area, Professor Nam said that you enjoyed The City of Nightbirds more than The Beast of a Little Land. So I really do encourage everyone who's here to pick up that book and buy it and read it. And I'm not sure if the short life of ballet makes it more beautiful. Whatever art form it is, whether it's classical music or visual arts, painting, oil paintings, or literature, just because something is going to disappear doesn't make it more valuable. Just because something is going to be eternal, it doesn't mean it's going to be less valuable. I want to write literature that is going to be loved 3 decades later, because so many books become bestsellers and they win awards, but 10 years down the road, nobody remember them. But I believe that if your book survives 30 years, then it will be remembered 1 century later. And my personal goal is to have my books eternal. I want them to reach 30 years of life and more, and stretch into 100 years. And the dance of talented dancers, I really talk about many very famous dancers in my book. They had perhaps short careers, but everyone remembers their dance, like Baryshnikov. And they have reached levels which younger dancers still have to overcome. And longevity, that is important. Just because the duration is short, the life is short, it doesn't mean that it's less valuable or more valuable. And I believe if art form is strong enough, then it will transcend time. Thank you so much for that answer. When you were posing the ballet movements earlier, it was really beautiful. So later, when we're having drinks, I think we might have more ballet moves.
And now I have a question for Kim Soom. This may be a question that you get quite often, but nonetheless, I am going to ask this question because I think the audience would be curious. Your literary world is still evolving, and in 2025, as of now, just looking back on your oeuvre, you do have this perception of the Korean modern and contemporary history. So One Left dealt with the comfort women. It's a must-read. Floating Land, about forced migration to Central Asia. Okinawa Spy, about the massacre of the Joseon people. And The Lost Ones, set against Busan right after the liberation of the Japanese colonial rule. And Elle's Sneakers, about the life of Lee Han-yeol, who is a pro-democracy student activist. So this is just a chronology of all the Korean modern history. So, it's very hard to imagine that this has been written by just one person. As for Elle's Sneakers, this was about the person who restored the sneakers worn by Lee Han-yeol, the student activist. And so you're bringing back to life the history, and that person who restored the sneakers is trying to bring back to life the history. So what are you doing, and what meaning does it have to bring back to life the history? Yes, to talk about Elle's Sneakers, this was a heavy story, and the reason why I wrote about this, I was interested in restoration. I was interested in restoration art. And so student activist Lee Han-yeol, I did not know much about him, and I am not a person who is familiar with, taking to the streets. I'm a very individualistic person. I'm not interested in the whole community. I'm interested in just one single individual person. But I think it's the power of one single person that brings the whole crowd. And so I think that's how I came to write Elle's Sneakers. And so when I get questions about Elle's Sneakers, I tend to kind of get more serious, and the tone gets heavier. I think it's because the reason why I came to write the story, I was first interested in restoration, and I concentrated more. I should have concentrated more, and I should have done a deeper dive. But, the sneakers that were being restored was not just an ordinary pair of sneakers belonging to just a random person. So the people who bought and read the novel, who are planning to read the novel, in order to write Elle's Sneakers, there were people that I met, and I did some research, and there were some, requests that I got from the interviewees. I think I felt burdened and pressured by their requests. So I did not want to really talk about the people's outburst and the agora culture. It was more about the inner feelings of the owner of the. If I had, taken a more deeper dive into the owner of the sneakers, then I would have felt more comfortable talking about the novel. But when I was writing this novel, I was at that stage. I was just interested in one person. I was not really thinking about the whole social movement. But in order to talk about that person, I had no choice but to talk about the other people around him. And, those people tended to grow more and more, and that's why I had to write my story in that way. Thank you. I am a moderator, so I dare try to summarize. Yes, restoring the lives of individuals, I think you feel that's the destiny of a writer, and the audience, the readers, will try to compare that with their own stories, and I think that was the understanding that I got from your comment.
Now back to Juhea Kim again. So I think this is an archetypal question about literature. I underlined so many parts in City of Night Birds, but I would also like to refer to a passage that I really enjoyed. The protagonist expresses her beliefs about art in this way. The most severe threat to creativity is comfort. At the end of the day, art is born of hunger, anxiety, sorrow, poverty, and loneliness. The drive to create begins in a state of tension, something along those lines. So the ballerina, who becomes more wealthier, was reminiscing in this way. And I couldn't agree with this more. It also reminds me of a quote from one of my favorite artists, Louise Bourgeois, the giant spider sculpture. I went to the Guggenheim in Bilbao just to see that sculpture. And Louise Bourgeois just once said something along these lines: the purpose of art is nothing more and nothing less than to overcome fear. And I have always struggled against fear, and this is what it came to. And true to that quote, in the many, many characters in the book, they are vividly representing the lives of artists facing their own fears. And my question is this. So before you were writing, or before you wrote your first book, you said you were physically hungry. And I believe that you're probably not physically hungry these days. Then what is it for you that drives you to write fiction? To be truthful, hunger, when I'm doing book tours, it's the biggest problem that I face. On the first day, I only got 1 hour in sleep, and I was starving. And today, for example, I woke up late. I slept late and missed the breakfast hour at the hotel. And I'm vegan, and it's hard for me to find food that I can eat. And anyway, at the end of the day, even today, as a writer, I'm still hungry. But anyway, about what drives me to write. So writing a book is actually very strength-sapping, and I believe that my life is getting short as I write. It's the same with City of Nightbirds. I still remember this incident. I was struggling one day. So I went to the grounds of the Tolstoy estate. I took a cab in Moscow to the Leo Tolstoy. Masha Osatrovara, my colleague, was accompanying me, and Masha was really excited, and they wanted to talk. And I said that I was too carsick to talk. And when we arrived at the estate, we had a beautiful dinner, and we had such a beautiful chat with the family of Lev Tolstoy. And an eggplant salad was served in the way that Lev Tolstoy's wife used to make it. And even after that dinner, I had to do more work overnight and do phone interviews. And I was getting shivers, and I was sitting on the sofa, but I felt like the room was revolving around me. I'm saying this because if there isn't a really strong motivation or reason for me to write, there's no reason for me to struggle and suffer so much with writing. And there is a very clear reward for me. What drives me to write is there are things that I want to testify the truth about life and truth about people. I really have to put that into words, into a novel. For City of Nightbirds, the truth that I wanted to share was my beliefs about art and its conflict with human beings, because art it might be something that is a luxury. And because if we consider the so many people who are suffering, so many lives that are suffering around the world, so many animals and plants are dying, and so many people are starving, and I'm attending these international events just to promote my own book, this really weighs on my conscience. Art has to have a very strong conscience, and as an artist, does it justify my working at art? I kept asking me that question. And my answer to that question was all put into the writing of this book. And I believe that another question closely connects to this. What I truly believe in is the innocent people who are suffering, those small creatures who are not paid attention to, like the stray dogs or those very ignored lives. I believe that God loves us all equally, and God really loves those creatures as well. But you see, so many lives are suffering, and so it's such a paradox, but I don't believe it disproves the existence of the God. I believe it's not a paradox, but it's a mystery. And By mystery, I mean it cannot be explained in logical terms, but it can only be expressed through art. And it also allows us to recover and return back to love. And I'm really passionate about all of these questions. And I want to testify to that answer in my next book as well. And I really want to believe that it's something that I have to do to make people believe what I see. So my questions might sound like formalities, but the answers that Juhea Kim is providing and City of Nightbirds, if you have read that book, then I believe that you can really relate to the answer. And I would like to stress again that we really have to read that book. As a moderator, I can really testify to the value of that book.
가까이 오셨으니까 약간 더 양심적인 김.
And Kim Soom, you did not fly, so I think you can have a better state of conscience. I'd like to ask this question, not about the content, but about the form. I cannot say improvement, but there have been changes and constant developments of the form. So as a critic, it's more work for me. So as a critic, it's kind of, stressful, but as a reader, I think it's wonderful. You did say that your new book will come out soon, but your most recent book is Rainbow Eyes. I'm sure some of you have read it already. For, one reason or another, some people were born blind and some others have visual impairment. So this is based on an interview of 5 actual real people who have visual impairment, and the Rainbow Eyes was based on that real interview. So you did talk, I did ask you about how your work deals with historical incidents, and a lot of literature does that. But in When Has a Soldier Wanted to Be an Angel, or in Listening Time, you seem to use the nonfiction method, which is the farthest away from fiction. Nonfiction, you use that tool and you create your fiction, it seems. And so if I read it correctly, is this your method necessary for you? How did it become necessary for you? Especially in Rainbow Eyes, visual impairment or, overall impairment, disability. Was there anything that you wanted to show by showing or talking about disabilities? Yes, the question was about my style, and that my style continues to change and evolve. And going back to my earlier response, I was not trained formally as a novelist. I just write, and so that form has just been, it just came to me. So, the title comes to me, and then that is the beginning of my writing my novel. And the form, the style also comes to me. So the example that you gave, When Has a Soldier Wanted to Be an Angel? It's about the comfort women. One of the comfort women passed away. I had a conversation with the grandmother, and I just wrote about her after the interview. I ask her questions, she replies, and her answers, I don't just transcribe word for word, but her answer has to be an answer that has to come from within me. And does it become the actual sentence in the novel? No, that's not what it works. the words come out of the grandmother's mouth, but the sentence that comes out of me and what I type on my laptop is recreated into something new. And then the style is created on the spot. And that was such fun for me. Up until then, that novel writing was the most interesting job. So I wanted to work on another project just like that. And in book talks, I do talk about it a lot, but since some of you may be new to my work, the visually impaired people, before I got to meet them, within me, there was a huge hole inside me, and in front of my feet, there was a huge hole, and these holes were humongous, and they were about to swallow me up. So I just jumped into that hole, and I just embraced, and there was this impulse that I just wanted to end my life by jumping into that hole. There was a certain time in my life when I felt that. And the totally blind, the hole that I felt could be, felt by the totally blind. They just feel darkness and blackness. But you have to know darkness and you have to know the color black. We cannot know what the blind people see and feel. And so I just wanted to talk to the blind people or the visually impaired people. I didn't know if this was going to be a novel, and I did not have an idea of whom I was going to meet. And somebody connected me to a person. So that person had visual impairments, but that became serious and became totally blind. And while I was talking with that person, I began writing, and that became a novel. And that style just came to me. And I decided I should just write about what I want and how I want to write it. So I just wrote what I wanted to write and how I wanted to write, and so it took on this freestyle. Yes, I did mention it before. So as a reader, this evolution of your writing style is magnificent, but from a critic's standpoint, oh no, her style changed again. I have to study again, because I love consistency. I love to see consistency in writers, and now she has changed. And, I have to do research. But, this was trivial. You don't have to listen to my worries. So that was what I was curious about. Thank you.
사실 제가 이제
Now, I have run through my list of individual questions for the two writers, and I actually began with a common question, your attitude or your approach towards your characters. And to round this off, I'd like to also ask you a last common question. So you might refer to your answer to the first question. So which character from your own work are you most drawn to? By drawn to, it doesn't have to be the one you feel most affectionate about. Sometimes you're drawn to a character when you really hate them. It might be a love-hate relationship or an unforgettably dislikable character. Could you introduce one character that you are most drawn to from your own book? Well, I love and hate all of my characters. And I think I said this before in another interview, because I always share a part of my own soul to the characters. That's how I write. And it's very difficult to say which I am most drawn to. But anyway, for City of Nightbirds, the protagonist, Natasha, I believe she's the one that I most resemble. Because when I was writing my first novel, in particular, the protagonist, I didn't want her to be too much close to myself as a woman writer, because didn't want to see the critics saying that I am lacking imagination, and I made the character Natasha. So why does it feel like Natasha envies Nina's life? Well, actually, I believe that in real life, friends look at what their friends have and what I have, and they compare themselves. And you always use your friends' lives as yardsticks by which to measure your own life, but Natasha is actually very satisfied with her own life. As I mentioned earlier, the two ballerinas, Natasha, her closest friend, Nina, I really found the relationship between those two very fascinating. So my question actually was going to be, do you prefer Nina or Natasha? Yes, I would say that I resemble, or Natasha resembles me more. Now, Kim-Soom?
저는 그 잃어버린 사람의 그 해방
I would like to mention the lost ones in the Busan village. There's a character, Sukuk, living in the fisherman's village. So when young, the fish, she would take the fish caught by the fisherman, and she would sell the fish on the streets. But then she became much old to, she was not able to sell the fish anymore. And she was hesitant to show herself to the villagers. And a fisherman just dropped the fish in the yard of Sukuk's house. And she wasn't sure which fisherman, but Sukuk took the fish and then looked up at the sky, looked down at the ground, and she looked toward the fisherman, whoever it was, and she bowed very gratefully. Thank you for the fish. And her very noble act, was shown through Sukuk in The Lost Ones. That's the character I love. So, yes, this was a question, I think the audience would have been curious about. So I did ask on behalf. This was the list of questions that I had prepared. And now we would like to take questions from the floor. So we did receive some questions previously, and we're getting questions on YouTube, but we don't have much time, and I'm sorry that we cannot entertain all the questions, so we'd like to ask for your understanding in advance. And we would like to take this question that was submitted previously, and this is related to the theme of this year's Writers' Festival. So we are dealing with resilience meets the eye. And so if you were to fill up the parentheses in front of meets the eye, what word do you want to fill it up with instead of resilience? 김주혜님?
What meets the eye? What we should meet with our eyes. I think I said this earlier, but just to repeat myself or add on to that point, I recently had an interview. And I was asked that I wasn't a happy ending writer. Well, all the characters, aren't any of your books in the future going to have the characters end up very happily ever after? But actually my answer is that infantilizing readers is not something that literature should do. Life is a tragedy. And people getting numb towards that tragedy and trying to turn away from experiencing that tragedy is something that writers should refrain from. They should actually implore the reader to observe life in its entire form. And I believe that beyond writing books, I believe that my role and my mission is to turn readers towards the sadness and the tragedy of life. So environmental activism and conservation and protection of animals is very important. As you may well know, I am really deeply involved in conservation of Korean tiger leopards. And this is something that I'm going to continue to the end of my life. And also, the City of Nightbird's proceeds are going to go to Somalia relief work and education. And I believe that I will get proceeds from these books for decades to come, and I am going to continue to donate that to return to society. And my third book is also going to serve a certain cause. When I was writing these two novels, I focused on really impactful issues. And for my collection of short stories, my third books, I'm actually going to try to shed some light on a grassroots volunteer organization, small private organizations that are really trying to make a difference in local communities. And I'm going to extend micro grants from the proceeds that I will get from my third book. So I believe that my role is to focus the reader's attention on things that are not that visible and things that people don't enjoy seeing. And stray cats and dogs and plastic and environment and climate and conservation. Aside from this, anything, I really want to ask you to share your love to causes that you can really commit your life to.
사랑
So this is, yes, one answer or one reason we really love literature. To see literature writers who show good examples, it's really a boon for Korean literature and literature. And Kim Soom, what do you want to fill in?
어려운데요.
This is such a tough question. Maybe I can change to listen instead of watch. I think, my visual sense is not something that I resort to. I think I was born that way. I think my auditory function is much more, stronger. I had a habit of falling asleep, listening to an audiobook. Just, close your eyes and listen, and then there are things that you can hear. So maybe you could try it today or tomorrow. Just close your eyes, and, even if it's a voice that you hear every day, if you listen to that voice with your eyes closed, it will feel different. Yes, this is related to meets the eye. Hyun-gi-young yesterday talked about, what's hanging in the wall of the Kyobo Book Center. The books make man, but he said the smartphones are made by man, and the man makes smartphones, but the smartphones are not real. And I think we can take stock of what Kim Soom just said. Instead of what meets the eye, we should heed and listen to what is around us. And so, yes, we took that previously submitted question, and now we would like to take questions from the floor. If you have a question to either of the writers, please raise your hand and you can ask in English or in Korean. So please raise your hand. Yes, please.
네, 안녕하세요.
Good afternoon. It's quite an honor to be meeting you, Juhea Kim, in Korea. I really made a point of being one of the first to reserve a seat here. Where are you from? Which area are you from? I'm from Dangjin, Chungnam. You know, I heard some readers are from Jeju. Thank you so much for traveling up from Chungnam. Well, Chungnam isn't that far away, but anyway, I really did make a point of spending my weekend to come see you. Thank you so much for your enthusiastic participation and your answers. Now we're moving on from digital to AI-centered world, and you know, we're becoming much more removed from reading, but still reading and writing is taking place. And it's such a pleasure to be discovering so many new books. And you are active overseas. And I'm very happy to see so many Korean writers active overseas like Min-jin Lee or In-soo Park. And my question for you, why are you writing under the name Juhea Kim or Kim Juhea? And I would like to know your nationality, your roots. Are you conscious of your own Korean roots when you're writing? I would like to recognize that you really traveled from far away. You know, I'm almost moved to tears to think that you traveled all the way here. You know, just as I travel to come see the readers, I really appreciate that readers themselves will also travel to come and meet me. You know, Juhea Kim stands for universe and wisdom, and I'm very proud of my name. And my family from Gyeongju, so I'm a Gyeongju Kim. So I would always say that I'm the descendant of Gyeongsun King of Silla dynasty who wore a golden crown, and I'm so very proud of my roots, and I really didn't want to take on a name like Mary or Elizabeth. I'm very proud of my own Korean name, Juhea Kim. And my identity as a Korean, how it comes out in my work, you know, as time goes by, I come to more terms with my Koreanness. In the beginning, I was all about getting my books published. I wanted to meet agents. I wanted to sign contracts with publishers. I really didn't have the luxury or the energy to think about Korean heritage. But you know, I'm writing my 4th book now, and now I have more experience as a writer. And when I look at myself, I see that I am a Korean writer in the fullest sense. I'm not saying that I'm writing Korean literature because I'm writing about Korea, but I'm actually carrying on the spirit and the tradition of Korean literature. You know, literary writers in Korea, I think this is a very unique concept. It's not just about a novelist who writes fiction, but you know, the literary person in Korea, they have to know about philosophy, and they also have to have a very strong sense of ethical responsibility towards society, and they have to be able to write poetry and fiction and also calligraphy and many other different forms. So that is what being a literary person in Korea means. I wasn't taught this, but I knew that this was inherent in myself. I always dreamed to become such a writer. I never wanted to become a full-time writer who just wrote fiction and sold books. My goal was always about becoming a literary person who was able to share my own stories through books and on stages like these. And I was talking earlier about the natural order and the community that comes together to form the universe, and writer has to play that role to demonstrate that to the readers. And I believe that Korean writers and Korean tradition is all about that. This is not universal around other countries and other cultures. I tour other countries and I read other countries' literature. You know, different countries' literature pursue different ideals. You know, of course, world literature all come together. These streams of different types of world literature come together in the large ocean of one world literature, but I believe that this is very unique to Korean literature. You know, this answer makes us feel very proud of ourselves. Now we'd like to take another question from the floor. The person wearing the hat.
저는 이 괄호 안에
In parentheses, you know, the word resilience is here, and I was attracted to the word resilience, and that's why I made the appointment. Fragility, weakness, that's what I usually think about. So, resilience. Life of resilience was quite attractive. And you talked about with passion, you know, even if you dedicate your whole body, there are moments when people crumble and people fall down. There's this sadness. And, you know, there are moments that come that are inevitable. So, resilience is made possible after you have gone through hardships. So, it is difficult to be resilient. So, when you think about resilience, how can you become more resilient? And in your thinking, how do you get back up after you fall down? In order to become resilient, what do you need to do? So this question goes to both of you, right? Yes. Kim Soom, maybe you could answer first. Resilience. I consider myself a very weak person. I have a lot of fear, but I like being weak and fragile. I like myself being weak. And to me, the energy that gives me the opportunity to write, there's the sympathy and compassion, and these are the weak people that inspire me to write. As for Sukuk that I talked about in The Lost Ones, so in people's perspectives, in historical and social perspectives, there are people that are weak and fragile, and I go around meeting those people. And I am always impressed and touched when I meet those people. They appear weak and fragile, but within them, there's something that cannot be emulated. There's this dignity as a human. And so there was this noble act shown by Sukuk, and I think that shows resilience. So the person who just asked the question, if you consider yourself weak, then I hope that you realize that there's another type of nobility and resilience that was found in Sukuk. I'm sure you have that in you.
Thank you so much. Now, Juhea Kim, over to you. Well, actually, I'm a very resilient person myself, because if you look at me, you know, I'm full of energy. You can see I'm like a tiger. I always say that I'm a tiger. I'm tall. But at the same time, I'm a weak and fragile person as well. The word I would like to refer to here, you know, because I'm both a native Korean and English speaker, fragility or weakness, those Korean words, I really don't like them. But if we give a literal translation, vulnerable, we could use the word vulnerable, open, and tender. But vulnerable and tender, they mean slightly different things from weakness or fragility. Vulnerable means vulnerable. It's open, and it's open to being hurt. And tender means it's soft. So it's different from fragile. It means that you're open, your mind and your heart is open, so you might get hurt. And I believe that this is a very important distinction. Because if you want to love, then you have to be vulnerable. Your heart has to be open, and of course you will get hurt. Art and literature is about suffering for others, shedding tears for someone else. Someone whose heart is closed, someone who is hard-hearted, cannot write literature. They don't have that nature. They don't have it in themselves. You have to be open. Your heart has to be open and vulnerable to be able to qualify as a writer. But what is fortunate is that if you are able to love, then it actually makes you stronger. I say that I'm resilient and strong, and I say that I'm never afraid of anything. I believe that this is possible because I was loved very much in my childhood. So it makes me vulnerable, but at the same time, it makes me very strong and resilient. And if you are capable of love, then I believe that you will understand what I'm trying to say.
상처받
So resilience is not about not getting hurt, but being able to overcome being hurt. I'm such a good moderator, and we have more time to get more questions. So I will take just one more question from the floor. We have two hands going up at the same time, and it's really hard to make a choice. I'm sorry, since I saw you first, the person wearing the glasses.
네, 저는 김숨 작
I have a question for Kim Soom. Your novel is based on interviews and previous research, and as was mentioned by the moderator, it seems to be like a reportage in the periphery of nonfiction and fiction, and Spatula or Alexeyevich, they are the journalists who report in war scenes, but your characters are living and vivid, and you don't just take the interview format, but you create your work borrowing your language to rephrase their answers. So in order to keep your ethics of restoration, is there any rule that you abide by? And in reading your characters, is there any effort that you make to preserve your own position? In the novels that I write, I think those are the novels that I have to have my ethical sense. But as for this sense of ethics, I do think about it previously. I don't think about it consciously and write my novels like that. So the people who touch me, I meet with them, I talk with them, and that becomes my novel. And Juhea Kim talked about love, and the people that I meet and talk with, they bring to me sadness, but it's the sadness that purifies me, because after I meet them, I become sad, and that sadness stays with me for long. But that sadness washes me and purifies me and sensitizes me out of numbness, breaks me out of my ignorance. So what I create into my work, I don't have hesitation. I don't have any hesitation, and I get the courage because I become immersed and I fall in love with the people that I meet. And so I want to continue to see that person, and the people who give me literary inspirations, I am very grateful to them. And blessed are those who are in sadness, to indirectly quote from the Bible. So those people remind me of that. So I meet with that person, and if I were to talk about the night sky, these people are like the stars, but the people don't see the stars, but I can see the stars in the night sky. And I think I am plucking the stars out of the night sky and showing that in the novels, and that's why I don't have any qualms or hesitation about writing about them. And so after I write my novel, I do give my novel to them as a present, because they gave me a big present. So I return the favor with my novel. So as for ethics, I don't think I have any reservation. Thank you.
너무 아쉽지.
So, with regrets, I must say that we are towards the end of this session. I know that you still have many questions, but we'll have to draw this Q&A to a close. Would like to extend my thanks to the people who asked their questions, all the participants, and also to the writers for their answers. So, you want to finish listening to the writers' voices. So, before we say goodbye, I would like to ask the two writers if they have anything to share with the participants before they say goodbye. Juhea Kim first. Well, first of all, thank you so much. Is that it? Now, Kim Soom.
네, 너무
Juhea Kim was very candid, and she gave us good energy. And Professor Nam, thank you for leading the discussion. Thank you so much.
다시 한번 뜨거운
Once again, please give a big hand to our two writers. So one more announcement. Outside the hall, there's a satisfaction survey QR code. Your comments and feedback will be invaluable for us in making the festival even better next year. So please don't forget to participate in the survey on your way out. Now, this Resilience Meets the Eye one-on-one is over, but we will have the two writers signing books right here after the talk. So Juhea Kim on my right side and Kim Soom on my left side will be signing your books. So please stay with us if you want your book signed. This brings us to the end of the 2025 Seoul International Writers Festival Resilience Meets the Eye one-on-one conversation. We hope to see you again. Thank you.